So without further ado, I would love to introduce my panelists. May I go around the room and just point on you and have you say hello and perhaps where you are today and why is the topic of travel interesting to you? So I'm going to start with Kevin because you're in my upper screen. Kevin, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Kwok. I'm a board member with the Davis Phinney Foundation, and I consider myself to be a road warrior with 3 million miles of actual traveled miles. I have a lifetime platinum membership with 2 million on United and 1 million on American, which means that that's way too much travel. But travel, I would say about a third of those miles happened after my diagnosis because of work.
Got it. Thank you, Kevin. You'll have a lot to add to today's conversation. Karen, welcome.
Hi. Well, how do I follow that with the travel, Kev? I just got back from Colorado, actually. And so all my suitcases are still in the back of my car because I'm relaxing. So my name's Karen Frank. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and I really did just get back from 2 months in Colorado. So I'll talk about that later. So welcome today, everybody. And I agree with Carl Robb, who commented and said, can we leave PD at home? Right. That would be wonderful. That would be great.
Kat, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm in Portland, Oregon today, and I am aspiring to be Kevin. I have been an avid camper and outside enthusiast with my family and my husband. And we are, I have not done a ton of travel until I got Parkinson's because I retired from a busy practice that kept me pretty close to the hospital. So I am learning to travel. We are selling our family home. Actually, we just sold our family home and are buying an Airstream trailer and planning on traveling a lot. We own a small trailer now, so I do have some tidbits to share. So thanks for tuning in today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kat. Tom.
Good afternoon, I guess, everybody. It's afternoon where I am in Denver, Colorado. So I on the YOPD Council for a little while here, but we do a lot of traveling. My wife and I have traveled for years. And we traveled when our kids were here, and now that our kids are gone, we travel as much, if not more. I just got back from Palm Springs after a week there. So, traveling's fresh on my mind as well. And my bag is unpacked, by the way, Karen. But anyway, that's just because I got home last night. But here to answer your questions.
Super. Hi, Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather. I like long walks on the beach. I have TSA pre. No, wait, I have TSA clear.
Ooh.
Call me. And I have a roller bag that goes 4 ways, like my hips used to do before Parkinson's. Travel extras.
That's terrific. Sri, I'm sorry you have to follow that.
I know following Heather is always a tough job, but I have my Davis Phinney shirt on to give me extra power. Woo! So my name is Shri. I'm a Davis Phinney ambassador and part of the YOPD Council, and I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. My first experience traveling is surprisingly from my mother's womb into the world. I consider that an elite travel experience. But more recently, I've been traveling throughout the United States. I've been traveling for the last 3 months, and I just got back home and I'm about to hit the road again in a couple of days. And I've actually traveled more with Parkinson's than I have in my life. In fact, in 2019, I did a round the world trip visiting New Zealand, Australia, most of Southeast Asia, many countries in Asia, and Japan, and learned a lot about travel. I wasn't as progressed back then, so I'm learning a lot about how to deal with Parkinson's and travel from my recent experiences. So happy to share.
Super. What we thought we'd do today is maybe start with some things that you've learned traveling with Parkinson's, tips, tricks, hacks, and perhaps answer some questions immediately from folks And then maybe dive into, is traveling right anymore with Parkinson's? How have you adjusted your travel? So let's start off with Heather. You started with your suitcase that goes 4 ways.
Pretty
Tell us a
neat.
little bit about that and why have you?
Highly recommend for those of us who are challenged with motor symptom disorders. You can wheel the bag every way instead of just dragging it or pushing it along in a straight line. This came in handy in Japan, where there were textured sidewalks for the blind to follow. We had to literally carry the suitcases that didn't have those wheels that go every way. And it's just helpful because you have to be able to pivot. As Kevin Kwok famously said in his Davis Phinney speech, pivoting is important. So there's that. And there are some other things too that we can do to prepare for travel. Like I said, TSA pre gets you through there without having to take those shoes off. In case you're going to light the plane on fire with your shoes, the TSA, gets you through a little quicker. Or you could do clear, which does cost some money. If you can afford it, it gets you through a lot faster. In fact, I think that I've seen people walk straight to the front of the line. I'm like, hey, they're budging. And after we blackened each other's eyes, I realized that I was in the wrong. And it turns out I don't look so good in orange either. Just saying, but I won't fight in the airport anymore. I promise.
Clear is a wonderful thing. I highly encourage people who travel by plane frequently to think about investing in it. It just puts you at the front of the line. And I tell you, every time I take off my shoes or my belt, sometimes I want to cry trying to struggle to get it back on. Just being able to cruise through is so nice.
Yeah.
And is that membership a year-long membership?
It is.
And do you all find that's better, clear than TSA pre-check?
Well, you can do both.
Yeah, why not double up?
By doing both, it actually cuts a lot of time out.
Mm. And stress, probably.
Yeah.
Well, that's the biggest thing with travel is doing the little tricks of developing routines, making sure that you pack the same stuff that you need, your medications are in the right place, and even knowing what pockets to put things, right?
Mhm.
Like I wear certain blazers where I put my phone, my passport, my wallet, the meds. You got to know exactly where you want to put your meds, and don't keep them just in your check bag. But having a checklist really takes the stress away from travel.
A travel
So true.
checklist.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I have this thing that I call the ultimate packing guide, and it just, everything from the hairbrush to, whatever else I can possibly think of. And then I have to go through that checklist because I can't remember what it is I've packed and haven't packed. So it helps a lot. And I'll pack I start about 3 days before I leave. And when I was working back before Parkinson's, I'd pack in like a half an hour. So, and then I think to that end, leave early as well for the airport. Yeah. So we used to leave about 2 hours before our flight. Now we leave about at least 3. Of course, it takes a while to get to the airport, about half an hour, 45 minutes or so. But having that extra hour cushion for me takes away some of the stress. And I can function better. So
I don't know how the rest of you on this panel feel, but I don't like checking bags because I use my roller bag to actually haul my briefcase and all my other things on top. Mm-hmm. And whenever I go international and they say, well, you're over the weight limits, you got to check it. Invariably, I end up losing a bag or something. But having enough time to store your bag is everything.
Mm.
So yeah, I wanted to reinforce that for me, I need extra time for all of it. I take more time to pack. I make more lists because running late or feeling pressured at all will really escalate my symptoms. So I don't want to be cutting anything tight. I follow a routine, like a lot of folks mentioned, with a packing list. And that includes, doing a lot of driving travel too. I like to set a loose guideline about when we're going to arrive somewhere so that I feel like I have wiggle room if I need to stop more or stay stopped longer, because that's what will really activate my symptoms a lot.
Yeah, I go so far as I have a handicap placard that I carry in each of the cars. And then I'll also ask for early boarding on flights because that helps a lot. When I can get myself out of the way, I'm much less inclined to panic along the way or freeze or something like that, which has happened. But then you can just take the parking placard with you when you're traveling wherever it is you are. The other thing that's really good to do when you're at an airport, especially an unfamiliar airport, is ask for wheelchair assistance. Because I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've gotten into trouble just trying to find where we're supposed to be. You know, we're arguing over where we're going and trying to figure that out. Whereas if you're in a wheelchair, they know right where to take you. And again, it can avoid a lot of problems and affect avoid a lot of delays.
Interesting. Kevin.
I want to show you my favorite travel tool.
Is that your custom
Go with it.
full queue?
The
Yes.
collapsible
Yes,
cane.
yes.
Full queue, weapon.
This gets you on planes all the time, easy. People want to help you with your bags, and it's wonderful when you're off. And my girlfriend brought it for me for hiking, but I don't travel without it anymore. It really helps a lot, and it's amazing how people part ways when you come up with your walking stick.
The chat is great. Can you fish with that, Kevin?
Yeah, that is good.
It's a waiting staff, doubles as a waiting staff for fishing.
Yeah, Kevin, that's a good cane because it breaks down to be so small. I have a cane that I traveled with a couple of times, and it was just such a pain in the butt because it was too hard to store. And but I'm into that custom 3-piece pool cue you got there. I think that'll work out good.
And
It
a lot
really
of the
does.
walking sticks, even if they aren't bendable, they telescope really well into smaller pieces. Because I found that same thing, Tom, that
Yeah.
at first I was really proud about it. Like, I want to do it by myself. I want to do all the things. Karen, I heard you say that earlier. I want to take care of it all myself. I don't want to ask for help. And that's a hard thing to do. But I've learned that if I can be gracious in accepting help or asking for help, my energy is better throughout the whole experience, because part of it is, as we all know, is pacing ourselves. So it's sometimes humbling. We don't always want to say, hey, we're the disabled ones. Yes, we need more time to board, but it really can make an impact in your overall experience. It's not just in the moment.
Yep,
I'm
the
going to
one
get a
thing-
little controversial and ask a question. Is travel good for us?
I
Well,
think
I'm not so sure. My father used to get so stressed out about travel, and they used to love travel. And as his Parkinson's got harder for him, he didn't enjoy it anymore, and it added to his stress and it maximized his symptoms. And there was a point at which he no longer wanted to do it because it was more pain than it was joy for him. I believe there was that tipping point. But I think the routine also, I find that it's difficult to switch my routine when I'm going places. I don't know that travel is bad for us because I do want to continue to travel, but I think it does affect us differently.
Yeah.
And I think you have to make room for that in your plans as you're traveling. I don't like to have like solid times to something. Like, we had to buy tickets to go to the Anne Frank house, and that was really, really hard to get to through Amsterdam to find this place on rough sidewalks at a particular time. And I don't want to miss out having to go, but you can call them and tell them you have a disability and it's hard for you to get there at a certain time. And is there a way that you could enter when you get there? And they will usually make accommodation. And another experience I had most recently in Colorado, because I was there for 8 weeks, is I really wanted to go to the Colorado Athletic Club, and I went there. They don't have short-term memberships. So I just started talking with them, and I told them I was in town and I was working with the Davis Phinney Foundation and that I had Parkinson's, and they were so nice. They actually gave me a free membership for 5 weeks to their facility. They said,
Would-
let's give you a week pass. We'll get back to you. And a week later, I got an email and said, enjoy your time here. And it was just about sharing with somebody and telling them about my Parkinson's. And it turned out that someone else's family member had had Parkinson's. And it was just a learning opportunity. It was great. It was really nice.
Which CAC were you at, Karen? The one in Boulder? Or?
The one in Boulder, yeah.
Well, they used to host a pedaling for Parkinson's class for us for free. And they provided everything. They were really great people to work with for a private health club.
That's really kind. That's great.
An upper end health club to do something like that was, I thought, pretty cool. So
I like this comment that Becca says on here about building flexibility for the flexibility muscle, because you constantly have to shift and adjust and pivot when you're traveling. And I think Becca brings it up. It's really useful and good for us. But at the same time, I'm more drained than ever after a trip nowadays.
So you're traveling less, Kevin, than you've got your 2 million mile membership.
You would think that I would always be constantly on the road on frequent flyer miles. I actually am becoming a little more, not homebound, because I still like to get on the road, but I do different kinds of travel. I bought a rooftop tent for my car. And I've been, during COVID, I told everyone, this is my private jet. I can get on there anytime, travel anywhere I want, not have to stay at hotels on there. And to me, that was just wonderfully liberating. And there's a lot to see just a couple hours away from us. We don't have to go to exotic locations all the time to get that mental stimulation of meeting new people.
Yeah, Heather.
I've heard through the grapevine too that there's going to be at least one travel company started by a YOPD person, by the way, that helps us plan our trips better with more space in between layovers, with spaces that we know have disability, like things have been modified for us, with people to meet us if need be, with wheelchairs and accessibility for people that are bringing equipment with them. And this is going to be tremendously helpful. I cannot wait. So stay tuned for that. That will be released sometime this year, I believe. So that's exciting.
Heather, if you'll keep us in touch, then we can broadcast that to this community.
I will, certainly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, simplifying travel is the key if you're going to do it. By moving to Denver from San Francisco, I opened up access to airports that I could never get to from the Bay Area across the country. Like I could fly out of LaGuardia instead of JFK, or I could fly to Nashville instead of Dulles in Washington.
Yeah.
That actually cuts off an hour of commuting time. And you wouldn't think that's a big deal, but it does. Those are the creature comforts that really make life easier for you.
3, do you have some thoughts? You mentioned just at the beginning that you were starting to travel a bit more and you've just gotten back from a trip.
Yeah. I think one of the key things is to talk to your doctor before you travel, or whoever is managing your care, and just get a check on your medication to, see what you can maybe take on a plane or not take on a plane, how that affects you. I had an experience when I traveled, my first international travel after a while, after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, on my way to New Zealand. And I passed out in the bathroom of the airplane because my medication just, I guess, affected me that way. So they knocked on the door and they kind of helped me get out of the bathroom. They had to lay me down, give me oxygen, which I think might have been overkill. But it's, they got to follow their protocol. And it was just a really intense experience for me. And I had no idea what was going on. It never occurred to me that the medication I take at home regularly would have caused this problem. And it's still not sure that it did, right? So it's not conclusive that it did, but this doctor said, my movement disorder specialist said it was a combination most likely of stress from traveling, lack of hydration. You maybe did not eat well in time to prepare, and in combination with the medication and possibly the altitude as well. So there were multiple factors. So my suggestion to anybody traveling is Make sure you're well hydrated. It's tough for people with Parkinson's, for
Mhm.
anyone really, in one sense, because the more you drink, the more you have to go to the bathroom, and then you have to pull down your pants, pull up your pants, put everything back on. It's a lot of extra work. So
You wear
diapers.
pants?
I'm sorry.
You wear pants? That'll get their attention. Sorry, keep going. Sorry.
Heather.
Wouldn't that be fun to get on the airplane? Everybody gets on without pants, and the next person that gets on says, "Pants for sale."
Yeah.
How many of you on international travel take sleeping medications like Ambien? That's a real danger on a plane. You know,
Yeah.
the flight attendants have a term for us. They call us Ambien zombies, those of us who travel taking sleep meds. But I used to take one on an international trip right as I got on, so I could sleep through the entire flight, land, and go to work. But that's something, as we have issues with sleep, I would be very cautious about the Ambien zombie look.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You
and
get-
that's the medication that did me in, was my sleep medication, because I thought I'm on a 18-hour flight. I think it was 18 hours or 12 hours. It was more than 10 hours. And I thought I really need to rest. And, there's no indication that this would be a problem. And I now do not ever take any sleep medication when I travel on the plane. I would just power through. And, if you can, there are these lounges at the airport where you can pay $60 an hour. Or if you have certain types of memberships when you land, if you have the ability to go to one of those airport lounges, check in, take a nap, if you can do that, that is really refreshing and helpful. Even sometimes a 30-minute nap, when you're really exhausted, gives enough energy for you to kind of be able to move and walk and start functioning again.
And Sri, I know that you have sometimes stayed at an airport hotel, something really close to the airport, to give yourself sort of a buffer between.
Yes.
And I thought that was really smart. That's a tip that I thought was really smart. Your flight maybe gets in the afternoon and you're going to be tired. So instead of planning the second you touch down, give yourself a buffer to the next day so that you can get someplace safe, kind of get reoriented to the schedule, get your medication figured out, then start your next day.
Yes, I do definitely do that. The other thing I do is I take taxis a lot more often now, which is more
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah.
But the taxis there, I don't have to use my shaky fingers and get an Uber driver and stand and wait. And it costs a little bit more money, but I don't have to do any of that stuff. And using a phone when you're low on meds, when you're off, or even when you're on and dyskinetic, pressing all those little tiny buttons can be very complicated. So I go back to analog, raise my hand, get a taxi. It works great.
I'd like to share something a little bit too. Ooh, I didn't I don't want to forget to mention this, so I'm going to throw it out just because it came into my brain. Something that I want to encourage folks to do, if you are thinking about camping and doing a lot on the road, there are some of the state parks give discounts to people with disabilities. So I know the state of California, for example, we will get half off our campsites, the fees for those. So while we might want to spend a little bit to get the flight, I forget what it's called now, the clear, TSA clear, maybe we can save our pennies camping, getting some discounts on campsites to be able to do the clear. And there's also the America the Beautiful Pass. So if you are collecting Social Security disability, you can apply for those things. And those are some substantial savings, federal park discounts, museum discounts. It's important to consider those things because it does add up.
There are also selected reserved spots closer to the bathrooms.
Yes.
We had
often they don't fill up as quickly.
Right.
We had a question in the chat from Becca Miller about traveling with a child, a 9-year-old alone, and that she had some anxiety about traveling alone with a child. And I want to know if any of you guys have some experience with that, because that's a really hard situation to deal with.
Well, my wife travels with me and she considers me a child, so.
I hear you're famous when you travel, Tom.
I've heard that.
Yeah, Tom is famous when he travels. I got to tell this real quick. So my very good friend Darlene was in Hawaii, Tom, and you were on vacation in Hawaii, and she recognized you from the Young Onset Parkinson's Council. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's Tom, and he has Parkinson's. And apparently you were looking at her funny. Because I think you recognized that she had Parkinson's, because if you got it, you spot it. You can tell, right? So anyway, she was afraid to say something because she wasn't sure, but
I think she's on board with us right now.
Mm-hmm.
she is. She said a comment that she saw you in Hawaii, Tom. But anyway, back to Becca Miller traveling with a 9-year-old.
So, Becca, I didn't have young kids when I had Parkinson's, but I did lots of travel on my own with 2 to 3 young kids. And I just really scheduled what I did with them. I had them each carry their own backpack. And at the beginning of the trip, I had things in that backpack, different things that we were going to do at different hours, so that it wasn't, I was planning ahead for activities, things that I knew that I could stand. So maybe a Mad Libs or a card game. And, what?
Duct tape. Sorry.
Duct tape. Yeah. Crochet. I don't know. That really helped me and also helped the kids. And they would get excited then on the trips before and say, Mom, when are you getting out the bags? And I was like, not till we get to the airport. So they'd be all excited about it. And just giving extra time, because it just helped me to plan it in my head and not be anxious about it when I was by myself. And it also gave them something to look forward to. It kind of kept them distracted. I don't know if that helps at all, Becca. I'll fly with you anytime, Becca.
Yeah, I'll fly with you too, Becca. I don't have any children, but I know from other people's experiences that, one thing that was really helpful is to get priority boarding or early boarding. Absolutely. And emphasize that you have a disability and you have a young child as well. I recently used the Parkinson's card. I didn't mention Parkinson's, but I said, I need priority boarding because I, have a disability. And that really helped with storing my luggage, because you're walking down a very tiny aisle. So if there's any freezing of gait or any anxiety, or even if you are just a person without freezing of gait, it's, if you weigh more than 20 pounds, it seems so hard to get through these aisles with a backpack or with luggage. And then I know Kevin mentioned he doesn't like to check in luggage. I actually check in my luggage. Everyone has their preference because of possible shoulder issues. Lifting that stuff up high becomes more and more difficult for me. So I prefer to make it as easy as possible. So with priority boarding, you can avoid a lot of the stress of that. And then also it gives you a break when you're pulling out your luggage, just to kind of rest for a few minutes without that rush to quickly leave, and say, oh, I have to deplane and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a nuance, but when you're on a plane, selection of seats is really important. Not everyone can upgrade. So if you can't upgrade, you want to get a little extra leg room. That extra leg room makes all the difference in the world on feeling cramped and tied in versus being able to stretch out a little bit. But the one caveat is when you board and you inform the people that you need extra help, they don't give you the exit row seats anymore, because they say, well, if you said you're disabled, you can't have it both ways. So be cautious of that when you play the disabled card too heavily.
Kevin, I think you can donate your miles to the world and we can all upgrade using your miles. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And before we get into the medication questions, which are great, and the travel tattoos from someone who likes to get a tattoo everywhere he goes, like a Yakuza, you're going to be covered from here to here soon. That's awesome. Let's talk about bladder control. Sorry, guys, I had to bring it up. I like to talk about pee, but I highly recommend for the ladies, there's something called Thinks. I don't usually talk about name brands, but there are millions of these different options. There's Thinks, there's Nix, there's let's see, Hello Hazel, LV, all kinds of things. They're washable things, and you can also add an additional pad just in case, because sometimes you can't get to the back of the plane, or you get back there and there's a line, and you're doing a little dance and there's nothing you can do after a while. So just make sure that you take an extra pair of underwear with you, gentlemen and ladies, and everyone listening.
It's a good
So
Yeah.
I'll see the rest of the questions too. With that.
And just really quickly
Didn't you
to
have something about pants?
Yeah, right. I better do extras. Extra.
Yeah, in addition to what Heather said, they do have specific pants or underwear, not pants, underwear for women. They're not diapers. They're actually high absorbing underwear that you can wear. They're usually black in color. They're a bit expensive, about $80, I think, for 2 of them, but they work really well and they're fairly stylish. So that can often help also with, if you feel kind of awkward about wearing something like that looks more like a diaper. These work really well. So I've heard, I've never tried them, but I just discovered them.
I also want to share along the no pants conversation. I don't wear pants when I travel. I usually wear a dress or a skirt so that it's easier to get off and on. And guys, it's a wide open world there. So you can join us in the skirt wearing if you'd like. Heather won't have anything on. I will have a dress and I'll bring an extra one.
But that's a good point that you make, because I'll wear like just elastic waistband pants, or I have some nice pair of lightweight travel pants. Real easy to deal with.
We're looking good, people. Somebody called me ma'am the other day. She said, "Ma'am, are you drunk?" I was more mad that she called me ma'am than whether she asked if I was drunk.
Right.
Did you just call me ma'am?
Heather, I'm going to start calling you ma'am all the time.
Yeah, ma'am.
These kids have already really ruined my international travel girl vibe. And now I have Parkinson's. That's really ruining my international travel girl vibe. But if you call me ma'am, it's game on.
Yeah, the other thing I'd mention, I think somebody referred to this, making sure you're hydrated, but to also bring food with you while you are traveling. I've found that I always think I can get something at the airport, and pre-COVID you could. Now it's much more difficult to get anything. And even at 8 p.m. at night, there's nothing open oftentimes. The other thing I used to take I'd take a lot of nuts and chocolate bars. I find that to be a lot more complicated for me now because of chewing and biting and swallowing. So I would suggest taking easy to digest foods and things that that work for you. And I'd make that definitely a priority. My third suggestion is when the air flight stewardess, I don't know what they're called, whatever they're called, the lovely flight attendant, the lovely people who bring you snacks. You might want to bring a container to pour the drink in that has a lid on it, because a couple of instances, my dyskinesia got a little crazy. I'm sitting in the middle seat and that tomato juice spilled all on me and all on the 2 people next to me. So then I had to mop it all up. It was actually, they're very kind, if, a little bit perturbed, but yeah, learned that the hard way. So
some airlines have covers for children, so you may just ask for a cover on your drink too.
So I also travel free with a microfiber cloth, sort of
Awesome.
like the size of a large washcloth. They're great for multi-purpose. You can clean your glasses with them. You can wipe up the spill. They're very absorbent. You just keep them in your bag. It's great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We should send out links to some of these products, Kevin's cane and the microfiber cloth and that sort
Just
of thing.
a little package of Clorox wipes. We get on the plane, we wipe down everything around us and all the tabletops.
Make sure you don't use it to wipe your face.
So this is a completely different.
Oops.
Oh,
You froze, Karen.
I think Karen's frozen.
Let's talk about poop.
There she's back.
Right when I'm talking about poop, I froze.
Talk about
I was gonna,
Let's talk
I
about
was gonna say, let's talk about poop because we talked about pee. Constipation when traveling. I get that because I think I get dehydrated on the airline. I found out that you could buy Miralax in packages that are already pre-dosed. You could just tear them open and pour them in your water.
Yes.
They're
little
great.
packages.
We need
They're
Miracle
pre.
EM.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's helpful. I also think what I try to really do, I know that if I get behind on water or fresh fruit and veg, I get behind. And so that's some of what I try to, it's like that's some of my medicine and that's some of my routine while I'm gone. At one meal, I'm sure that I have like an apple and fresh carrots. And I just have, that's part of my routine, and it really does help my digestion some. Again, a lot of it's planning and knowing what your own routine is and seeing if you can mimic that some. I think that's important. And I also, if anybody else is traveling with family, part of what's hard with Parkinson's is that our routine is different than it used to be. And the keeping up part is hard. And you don't want to overdo it to keep up or hurt ourselves doing that. And I know that I've been learning to accommodate for myself when I'm planning to travel with my family, to have activities that I can do where I'm still having a really good time and engaged, but I don't feel like I have to keep up with everybody else. And I've been learning how to just kind of keep a journal and a little sketchbook, and it helps me to take a break. My family's comfortable going on ahead without me, and they know I'm having a good time and still engaged. I usually sit down somewhere at a cafe where I can order a cup of tea. They know I have a bathroom, and then they come back and join me when they're ready. And that allows us all to enjoy ourselves and me to not feel like I'm slowing everybody else down. So other people may want to take a book with them, or listen to a podcast, or but think about that. Instead of not going because you think you're going to slow everybody else down, maybe find ways to enjoy things, but maybe in a little bit different way. Anyway, that's my soapbox for the moment. Sorry.
Great suggestions.
Those of us who travel for work, one of the things that I would suggest is take an extra day to enjoy yourself in the places you go. I often find myself going to, across the world just for one dinner meeting and flying back. And that's just such a waste of time, when you really think about quality of life. Slow it down a little bit, go to a museum the next morning before you fly home. You'll find that it's much more enjoyable. It doesn't really take that much more time to build that extra little half day in.
Yeah.
But there is another thing that I want to chat about, which is sort of an unpleasant thing, but it's something that, when we travel abroad, be careful that we are targets. Pickpockets and people who look and prey on people like us. And I really encourage, as you walking, not to take a map out in public or look at your phones. Your wallet is an easy target, and pickpockets are so good at working in teams. I was just in Barcelona a couple of years ago before COVID hit, and had my wallet stolen.
My son just got his stolen in Madrid.
Oh, they're really good. They buff
too.
you. They work in teams.
So let's segue to answer a question that's come up in the chat, which is as you are traveling, especially if you're traveling via an airplane and you're going through multiple time zones, or you're going to Europe or lots of time zones, how do you manage your meds? How do you manage traveling through that many time zones with your medicines? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kat.
I know that what I do is that when I'm trying to get on the new time zone, I dose. Let's say I'm awake for 20 hours or 24 hours, trying to be awake for 24 hours. I might dose my daytime dose that way on the way there. And then I'll take my long acting when I'm supposed to be asleep. And then when I come home, I do the opposite. So I take my nighttime meds as I'm traveling and switch over. I think it's probably worth having a little bit of a dialogue with your provider if you have a complicated medication regime. This is not meant to, suffice to be medical advice for you. But I think I've heard people doing it different ways. That has worked really well for me consistently. And I've done, I was going to say time travel. That's not, I haven't done time travel. I've done travel.
Wow, I want to do that. Sign me
You're
up.
going the wrong way.
How do they know which way we're going?
Do you have a DeLorean, Kat?
I know a guy who does.
I'm on a DeLorean.
Oh, forgive me. It's been a long week. Anyway, that's what I do. So what does everybody else do?
Actually, there's a really good article in the New England Journal of Medicine on managing jet lag with melatonin. And supposedly all of us are taking it incorrectly in the sense that we take it as a sleep med
Correct.
instead of using it as a med to sort of adjust your time cycles. And so Kat says exactly that. You should take it at 5 o'clock at your destination time, and then expose yourself to sunlight. That's really the proper way to take melatonin. But very few people can work out the time zone differences. I know I have trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was, I'm sorry.
It depends on which way you're flying and all that, how far you're going and stuff. But what I generally try to do, again, this is general and not a solution for everybody. Like Kat pointed out, I try to get myself on the destination's time frame as soon as I can. And usually that involves me maybe skipping a dosage over the evening or the nighttime. Like when we flew to Australia, I skipped a whole day and then just jumped on the daily meds that the morning when we got there. And I was actually better than I've ever been in that case. But that's just, again, kind of a very, very dependent thing on what you take, what your cocktails like, and et cetera. So.
Yeah, I think for me, when I was traveling internationally, or even from the East Coast to the West Coast, which I've done quite frequently recently, and I'm traveling, I think, every single month to the East Coast this year. I have no idea how that's happening, but I often have side effects from medication. That means as soon as I take a pill, depending on the pill, I get sleepy or fatigued within minutes. So for me, timing is of essence. I cannot follow the same schedule that I do. So I often just listen to my body and make the best of it and take one full day of rest, maybe 2 days of rest if possible. So if you have a busy schedule, meaning you're landing, you're attending a conference the next day, I think Kevin addressed this earlier, try and take some extra time, show up early. Kat also mentioned this, other people have as well. Give yourself that time and write down what your normal schedule is. You think you know what your normal medication and eating and drinking schedule is, but a lot of us actually don't know. And then figure out what time your plane is landing, what time you might get to the hotel, map all of that out in advance and figure out what the best time to take your meds would be. That has been something that's been really, really helpful. And quickly, somebody asked in the chat, I think it was Heather, what do we all do for medication? How do we take it? My fingers sometimes get too shaky and too stiff to use a lot of those things. So I have spent a lot of money on different mechanisms and different bottles and different things. And honestly, nothing has really worked for me. So now I just take all of the bottles with me with the labels. And that actually works well, because if I'm traveling internationally, particularly to countries where English is not the primary language and they don't speak English that well as a second language, nor do I speak the language well, trying to negotiate with the immigration officer or somebody else as to what medication you have and showing them the card, they can also dispute the card. So I take the pill bottles with me full on. They jingle and they jangle in the backpack. That's fine. I never check in my meds. I take everything with me. Everything. I'll stuff it in my bra if I have to.
Me too.
It's a very lucky bra.
I had a good suggestion, and I will do this whenever I travel internationally to a country where the language is different and I can't point to letters, for example, of the traditional alphabet that I'm used to. When I was in Japan for the World Parkinson's Congress and we were walking, they gave us these little cards, which were wonderful, that said, I have Parkinson's in Japanese and various other things. If I need help, I have Parkinson's. And I thought, oh, I probably won't need to use this card. But every day when I went out, I stuck it in my pocket. I was traveling with another friend with Parkinson's who fell off the curb and hit his head, and he was a little out of it. And people were coming over, that I was anxious and my tremor was shaking, and he was, not doing that well. And I remembered I had that little card and I pulled it out. It said, I have Parkinson's, and I pointed at him and I just handed them the card, and they were like, oh yes, I know what to do. They actually called for help, and they were able to speak in Japanese and tell the help that arrived that he had Parkinson's. It was very, very helpful. So I will always do that with my Google Translator. I'll just print out a little card. I have Parkinson's.
That's really smart thing, to be prepared for everything. I mean, as much as you can think of. And I've seen that so many times. Karen was in Washington, D.C., and a very good friend of mine with Parkinson's fell on her way back to her hotel. And we had walked her most of the way there, but as she said, I'm confident she could get down the last block to get there. right square on her face, broke her nose, a couple of teeth, and it was a horrible situation. But again, you got to plan on that happening, because it can very likely happen, especially in countries where they don't take care of their sidewalks. Not that they do a great job here, but you're not a lot more prone to find a little lip in a sidewalk in Rome, for example, than you are, say, in downtown Denver. But
When it's unfamiliar, that's part of
Yeah.
it. So no matter how well they tend things, it's a city that you're not familiar with, a hotel you're not familiar with, and
Language
a
barrier.
campground you're not familiar with. Somebody asked in the chat about DBS. I think the other thing, a medical alert bracelet. They make cute ones now. I have a kiddo that's a type 1 diabetic, and I think it's important for us to consider those things so that first responders and can help us in a way that's safe for us also, to be thinking about if you're traveling.
Yeah, why aren't there more beautiful bracelets for us? I think somebody needs to design that. Something that maybe could be cross-referenced with, say, what is the medical system that we're working on, Kat? So that everybody has
Epic.
access?
The help
Epic.
work task force. Yeah.
Oh, help.
Yeah, all of the things. If
Karen.
it could be cross-referenced somehow, that'd be great. I wish.
Yeah. That's good information. Yeah, good feedback.
Kevin, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I actually had another comment. Many of you on this panel, and I know many in the audience, use CBD and THC, and with laws becoming more lax, people are starting to travel. Yes, exactly. If you're traveling overseas, do not travel with THC. I mean, I've accidentally thrown stuff in my suitcase and left it there. And you just do not want to get into that situation when you're traveling internationally.
Great point. I have a visual of the pill container that
I love those.
this is the bigger size of the GoTub. It opens with one hand. You can also put
Oh, that's cool.
your chocolate in
nice.
there. This is the larger size. That one hand, you just squeeze it, and snacks.
Where did you get that, Polly?
Jackie put the link in the Tom has the smaller version.
Yeah, it's because you showed them to me.
I love those.
Love these. These are so great.
Oh, go Tub.
Yeah,
I've done some little advertisements on my own for them, but I don't ever put them out there because I don't want to promote any particular brand, but they really are the best.
They really
are.
They come in different colors too, so you can just quickly look into your pack and keep one in your pocket. They're water resistant. I mean, it's really nice.
I
Yeah, I
have
just
two
posted-
other.
I just posted a note. Sorry. I just posted a note that said bring extra meds, of course, when you travel. I usually bring 1.5 times what I need. So, and again, like Sri, I'll bring it mostly in just the bottles, because I used to try to arrange it all, and I thought this is BS. Just throw it all in a bag and shove that bag inside my backpack, and it's always on my body. And then the other thing is take extras of these and hide them in your wife's purse or in your suitcase or someplace else, because if you're like me, you're going to walk out the door and you're in line to go see the I don't know, the Vatican or whatever, and you forgot your damn pills, right? That happens to me all the time. So stash extras.
The Pope's not carrying it for you?
What's that?
The Pope's not carrying your meds?
No, not
We
usually.
all we like.
Not yet.
The other thing I'd suggest that I learned also the hard way is make sure that if you get your meds online, add an additional address. If you're staying with family or if you're traveling somewhere else where you know someone, you can add their address as a medication, as a additional address, so meds can get shipped to you in case of an emergency. Doing it during a crisis or during oh my gosh, I ran out of my meds is actually stressful. So think about that. Also, if you can, and this is not easy to do in the US, and it's probably difficult to do in some other countries as well, is see if you can get 3 months of medication in advance. I often need a special doctor's directive to do that, but at least when I was with Kaiser, they accepted it saying it was specifically for travel. And I still keep that because honestly, having to get your meds refilled every single month while you're traveling in and out or for any reason is, it's another level of anxiety. So I always I don't even carry twice the amount of meds I need. If I'm going anywhere, it's a minimum of 1 month's worth of meds. I am just paranoid. I can't go without them. If I'm traveling somewhere for more than a month, I carry 2 months.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
the same way. I agree. I just ran into an issue where I was gone for 8 weeks and I had to order meds through Express Scripts. So I changed my address on Express Scripts to have them mailed to Colorado, but I forgot to change it back. And so I had an auto refill that actually sent my meds to the wrong address. So I don't use auto refill because I don't feel like I'm in control, and I'm so obsessive, Sri, about my meds like you are, that I don't feel comfortable with anything being automatic. So I want to be in control of it. So I actually now remember to change my Express Scripts address back to my home address so the meds got shipped to the right place.
that happened to me. That happened to me just 2 days ago. I forgot to change the address back, and I'm like, oh no, my meds are being shipped, but luckily it was shipped to a family member's house, so they're going to ship it back to me. So you do have to remember that. And with brain fog, that can be a little tricky, but post-it note right on your forehead, maybe.
Hey, don't forget to exercise when you're traveling. I know you joined the gym, Karen, which is really good. But it's so important.
I also use my Oculus when I'm traveling. I put it in the car and I do
What'd you call me? An Oculus? What is this?
You're an octopus. Oculus. Oculus. Have you guys exercised with an Oculus?
Yes, it's
You
terrifying.
can do yoga on the moon. What are you guys doing? You have to check it out.
Awesome.
It's great.
There's
Great.
exercises you can do in the seat of the airplane too, or so don't forget to stand up and walk around the plane a little bit,
Your
or just
seatmate
stand
will
up
love
and do
you.
squats in the aisle.
I get a lot of dystonia if I sit too long. Probably a lot of you do too. I have a small, I use often a roller, like a rolling pin almost on my shins. I take a little small dowel to roll out my shins. Looks funny, but it's about that long, but it's about a 1-inch dowel that I sanded down, and I'll roll out my shins or my calves if I'm having trouble. My husband sometimes will work on my feet if I'm having trouble, but getting up and moving around and staying hydrated and staying on schedule with my meds seems to help that the most. So
a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball really works well.
Tennis ball, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You can also bring a massager, something I think I've used recently, which is a Theragun.
Yeah.
They have a travel version of it for $199. It's a bit pricey and it's not always the easiest to use, but it's better than a lot of other things. It really gets rid of a lot of tension everywhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love that.
And if you have tension from someone that you're traveling with, you can always tape a vibrator to their water bottle as you're going through the TSA. That'll stop them for a while. Just a pro tip.
Yeah.
I've never done anything like that.
But
You've
you're
never done
thinking
anything?
it. You're thinking it.
Or
I think our takeaway is be careful if you're going to travel with Heather.
Yeah, and don't wear
Yes.
pants. Don't wear pants.
Parkinson's. Sorry. But in all seriousness, if you do use DBS, I was mentioning in the chat, make sure that you have this on your person. If you lose this, you're kind of screwed.
Ooh, yeah.
Especially if it gets in the wrong hands.
didn't you lose it once, Heather? I remember.
That must be
did.
somebody who looks like me, my doppelganger.
Yeah.
I
just wanna
remember.
point out- I wanted to point out a couple of the comments. I think Amy mentioned this, and I know Heather mentioned this, and this kind of relates to what Karen was saying earlier. If you're traveling internationally or anywhere in the world, what Parkinson's has given us is a huge community. There's pretty much anywhere in the world we can go where we can meet someone who has Parkinson's disease and that they understand what we're going through. So if you're going to Sweden, I think Amy mentioned that, or if you're going to Amsterdam, or I mean, it's the Netherlands, but Amsterdam, whatever, contact anybody you know there with Parkinson's. There are Facebook groups, there are online groups, and let them know, hey, I'm coming. Would be great to meet up. Maybe we can go to the museum together. That's a great way to extend your network and have a local person who knows the ins and outs. So they're like, watch this cobble step where David was, the statue of David was built here. Don't fall over, whatever it is. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and if you happen to see me or one of my other famous colleagues here, say hello.
Please. Please.
An autograph.
In Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom is going to be in Hawaii all the time now.
I'm leaving in about
that.
half an hour. Anybody want to go? I'll drive.
Somebody also brought up how do you deal with equipment? And right now I don't travel with equipment, but my dad did. And what we did was call ahead and had equipment rented where we went instead of traveling, trying to take things with us. Having equipment. There's often rental companies that you can rent from, and they sometimes will even bring it to your hotel. So just food for thought. If you're traveling and you need a scooter or you need certain accommodation, think about that on your trip at your destination.
And whatever you do, don't drink.
Don't drink with Heather, I think is the subtext right there. Or better yet, drink with Heather and have
Don't
the time
drink out
your
of
life.
Heather's water bottle. Other thing.
Parkinson.
Oh gosh, I hope this has been helpful. I've learned a lot about Heather.
A lot more.
You know who you won't be traveling with? Kevin just mentioned a cavity search. But anyway, on to brighter subjects. Oh, hello, Davis.
Oh yeah, Davis is with us. Hi, Davis.
We're just talking amongst ourselves live on your.
Way to
Oh.
represent.
This hour has gone by so quickly. What great advice. What great laughter you all have given me in my day, and hopefully our audience here. We're going to come back together again next month. If you all in the audience have topics that you would like this group to talk about, please share them with us. You can do that at blog@dpf.org. Tell us what you would like to know about. In the meantime, we will be gathering links. We will be all of the suggestions here, the suggestions from the chat. It may take us some time because there's been so much robust content. We will get that out to you with transcript and video as soon as we can. In the meantime, any last quick words of advice? One thing you'd like to leave folks with?
Keep traveling if it brings you joy.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
Prepare
Go
for the
best
worst.
you can.
Travel with Heather.
Watch your back.
Wonderful. Huge amount of gratitude to all of you. And to those of you who showed up today to watch, thank you. And we will be back same time next month, third Thursday at this same time. We will see you then. And thank you, panelists. Really wonderful suggestions.